Welcome aboard.
Welcome back into TCM Pod. Chris Mathis, Spencer Mathis once here with you guys again after what was a very interesting week 2 and 3 makes that week 3 of the NFL season. And I'm here at iHeartRadio Studio, Spencer back at Young Harris College, and we're here to talk about all things NFL. We even have a couple of picks that we're going to make here later on in the program as well regarding week 4 of the NFL season. But kind of the big headliner today and this evening and heading into the rest of this weekend and maybe even later into this NFL season is where could we see star running back Jonathan Taylor end up? He still wants to play in the NFL. He's not happy with his current situation with the Colts. This is kind of a whole conundrum regarding the superstar running back. And obviously we understand as Jim Irsay, the team owner, had some interesting comments about Jonathan Taylor, his star running back, earlier this offseason. And that really ticked off Taylor. Pun intended. He was upset. He's pissed off at his GM, at the owner of the team. And now it's really just a situation in which we're having to wait and see where Jonathan Taylor could end up. And Jonathan Taylor still trying to play this year. That's at least the game plan for him. That's what he makes it seem to be. I don't know if Jonathan Taylor's going to play this season. I don't know if the Colts are going to have to make something happen in which they can move on from the running back. But I know some people feel pretty firm about him signing elsewhere, getting traded elsewhere. I just don't even know where to go with this because there's so much to delve into regarding the star back and him being upset with the organization that drafted him. And they really need him. The Colts need him, but I don't foresee this relationship mending. I don't know if he'll ever play with the Colts ever again.
Yeah, look, it's going to be hard for Jim Irsay, the owner of the Colts, to let go of a guy like Jonathan Taylor. But Jonathan Taylor is not going to suit up for the Colts regardless of what anybody says, because in week 4 next week, after week 4, so heading into the next week after this week, he is eligible to play for any team that he wants to. Of course, right now his rights are owned by the Colts, but if you're Indianapolis right now, you've got to think about the future because this is a guy that's not going to play for you. He's pretty much made that clear, completely clear and obvious that Jonathan Taylor does not want to play for Indianapolis next season. So then if you're the owner for the Colts in Irsay, you're thinking, what can we get out of this guy? Obviously, the running back market isn't as good as it used to be. You're not going to be able to get a first-round pick for this guy, but you may be able to get a very late second round or a very late third round, and that, to me, depends on what team you're going to be trading this guy to. To get a late second or third round, you're going to have to trade to a very good team, and I think the only teams that are looking to trade for a guy like Jonathan Taylor right now are teams that are contenders already and teams that maybe will only have this guy for 1 or 2 seasons, and then he's on the free agent market again, and that may be the end of his career. But you've got at least 2 or 3 more good seasons out of Jonathan Taylor, regardless of if the Colts play him this year or not. But in my opinion, I think the Colts are going to look to trade Jonathan Taylor away. And looking at some of these teams that are possibilities to trade, obviously early on we heard about the Kansas City Chiefs. Not too sure about that now. Isaiah Pacheco is a pretty good running back. He's been injured a little bit this season, but he was very good last year as an undrafted free agent. He cost them little to no money. And then you look over at the Dolphins, who are another team that were brought up very much in the early trade rumors for Jonathan Taylor. But, I mean, look at them last week versus the Denver Broncos. You had Raheem Mostert go for over 200 yards. You had Devin Achane go for over 200 yards and 4 touchdowns each. I mean, both those guys are great running backs that can do multiple different things. And you don't need to pay a running back like Jonathan Taylor. But a team that I'm looking at is the Baltimore Ravens, a team that always has injury problems with their running backs. I've always had problems with their running backs. J.K. Dobbins, guess what? He's gone again. He's out for season again, I'm pretty sure. This is a guy who continues. You said what?
Achilles tear in week 1 over the Texans.
Yeah. So this is a guy who continues to get hurt. You've got a running back room with Gus Edwards and then whoever else falls behind him. And Gus Edwards
has been. Justice Hill is the next guy.
Yeah, and Justice Hill's the next guy. And Gus Edwards is a guy that you see on the stat sheet says, hey, this guy's averaged over 5 yards per carry in his career, which is insane. But again, I don't think he's a guy that's going to be the main tailback in the playoffs whenever the Ravens do end up making the playoffs this season. Obviously, the AFC North is tough this year, but the Ravens are a great team. And honestly, I think they're one more playmaker away. They've got a good tight end, Andrews. Zay Flowers, a good new receiver. Odell Beckham Jr. will be back eventually this season. It already got hurt. Who would have thought that? But the Baltimore Ravens are a team that I think would be willing to trade for Jonathan Taylor because this is a team whose window is within the next 2 seasons because if you're Lamar Jackson, hey, you've got to win something now. You've got to at least make it to an AFC championship game. You've got to prove something. He was out a lot last season. He's back this year. He's had some fumble issues early on, but they've got a new offensive coordinator in Todd Monken. They're looking to open up that playbook a little bit more with a little bit better receiving backs, such as a guy like Jonathan Taylor. Why not send away a second or a third round, or maybe even a second and a third round for a guy like Jonathan Taylor who can really help you in the playoffs? Because a running back isn't needed, like they say, in the regular season, But once you get into the playoffs, you need a Bell back. You need someone that is going to carry the ball over and over again and is going to have a good season. And Jonathan Taylor, based off of 2 seasons ago, was insane. Last year, injury issue obviously was just the first time he's been injured. You can't really call it a big injury issue with Jonathan Taylor. He's a guy that can put your franchise forward for at least the next 1 or 2 years, and especially in the 2023 season. So, in my opinion, scratch the Chiefs, scratch the Dolphins. Look at Jonathan Taylor being traded from the Colts to the Baltimore Ravens. And obviously, some of the NFC teams, you're thinking maybe they're not going to trade to the AFC. There's not very many NFC teams that need a running back like those 3 AFC teams do, and specifically the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah, Jonathan Taylor, just 24 years old, Spence, and he had an incredible year in 2021, over 1,800 yards on the ground, 18 rushing touchdowns. Then the year prior, his rookie year in 2020, 1,100 plus yards, 11 rushing touchdowns there. So this guy has done it. He's proven he's a legitimate running back. Granted, the Colts did have a really good offensive line those first couple of years. However, Jonathan Taylor, coming out of college, was highly sought after, a guy that was expected to be the next guy to take over the NFL and the ground game across the league. And so far, we've seen that. Obviously, this year we can't see it because he is in a feud right now with the Colts. The Colts aren't happy with him because he's sitting out practically. He's not playing for the Colts. And they really have a new situation regarding Anthony Richardson at quarterback. Gardner Minshew eventually had to start due to Richardson getting banged up with a concussion. Speaking of Gardner Minshew, he did okay. But Jonathan Taylor, he's looked pretty good when he's played. However, we talk about how strong this man is or how much he can take with that type of playing style. He's been banged up in both games he's played, and he left the game early. So, that's something to weigh in on. And if they have to establish a rushing tag elsewhere, they will, and they need to, because, of course, he is an X factor, talking about Anthony Richardson with the football in his hands and tucking it and running. However, it's also an injury risk, too, and we've seen that so far. So Jonathan Taylor could be on the move. And like you said, I think the Ravens are trying to make that next push. They've got a great head coach. They've got, whatever it's worth, a great head coach and a great kicker, great quarterback, too, in terms of being able to win football games. Not necessarily all about the arm talent there when I'm talking about Lamar Jackson. But this guy is an MVP caliber player, and this is one of those guys that should be expected each and every year to make a deep playoff run, especially with that talent. And they finally have receivers around him, too. They just need an established rushing attack there in Baltimore. And as you said, come playoff time, we've seen it time and time again. Sure, the Titans haven't won a championship in years and years and years. However, Derrick Henry does carry that team in the playoffs to at least 1 or 2 wins alone.
Yeah, and I obviously you don't want to be paying a running back a ton of money. Jonathan Taylor, you're probably having for 1 or 2 years, but I think the trade-off is worth it. I go back to the Buccaneers in 2020 signing Leonard Fournette, obviously not paying or trading big things away for this guy, but if they didn't have Leonard Fournette, that's a team that's not going to win the Super Bowl. They may not even have made it to the Super Bowl without a guy like Leonard Fournette that season. And then you look at Isaiah Pacheco last year with the Chiefs, obviously a guy who was cheap for the Chiefs, undrafted free agent, or maybe even a 6th-rounder for Kansas City, played great, but you need a running back in the playoffs. And if you're the Ravens and Lamar Jackson, who haven't been able to get past that AFC divisional game into the conference championship, I think a running back is the way to go. And obviously, you're going to hope that you have OBJ down the stretch healthy with Zay Flowers and Mark Andrews and the rest of that team, because the defense always good with Baltimore. But a running back like Jonathan Taylor this season would, I think, maybe push the Baltimore Ravens into an AFC championship slot for the first time in a long time.
And obviously, I look forward to seeing the Ravens do their thing. And I'm kind of one of those doubters that doesn't think that Lamar Jackson can win it all. But maybe a guy like Jonathan Taylor could be that answer, that second push that the Colts are willing to move on from and help out. I wouldn't say necessarily help out, but maybe it is they need to get something in return for Jonathan Taylor, because they're losing out on him just sitting there not playing for this team. So, yeah, in a way, getting rid of him, he would play football for another team. And as you said, maybe it will be the Baltimore Ravens, which would be very interesting to see it shake out and see them do their thing, because the AFC is a very difficult conference this year. Tua doing his thing. He's finally healthy. If he can stay healthy, the Dolphins, they maybe have taken a step for me in terms of them being a deeper playoff threat than I expected. I thought they'd be a one and done in the playoffs. I might be wrong. As of right now, the Dolphins look to be legitimate. They put up, 70 points against the Denver Broncos last week? Come on, man.
Yeah, and let's also talk about how Jalen Ramsey hasn't even hit the field yet for the Dolphins. He's going to be back in December. So that defense is only going to get better. As long as Tua stays healthy, the Dolphins are a legit contender in the AFC this year, and I'm excited to see how they shake out of the AFC East heading into the playoff and into January.
All right, NFL football picks are in, and we're going to make ours right now as the Green Bay Packers will kick things off tomorrow, Thursday Night Football. The Packers host the Detroit Lions. The Lions are 1-point road favorites in Green Bay.
Yeah, I like the Lions in this game. Obviously, I think those two teams are very similar, but I like Jared Goff's experience so far. I think after that big comeback for the Packers last week against the New Orleans Saints, 17-0 was the score. They ended up winning that one 18-17. They're obviously going to be heading in there with a head of steam, but I'm going to pick the Lions in that game. Jared Goff with a good day for the Detroit.
I'm going to go with the Packers at home. I think they pull off the so-called upset against the spread there at Lambeau Field. I like what I've seen so far from Jordan Love. I think week 2, he took a big step. Obviously had a good week last week as well. Moving on now to Sunday's games, and we'll save the Bucs for last because that's a big NFC matchup, NFC South matchup. Marshawn Lattimore, Mike Evans. The other storyline, 2 former number 1 overall draft picks, 2015 Jameis Winston and 2018 Baker Mayfield, playing quarterbacks for their respected teams. But the Atlanta Falcons, they'll play in London against the Jaguars, and the Jags, 3-point favorites. Both teams a road team there in London.
Yeah, give me the Jaguars. They're a team that's been to London, I think, every year for the last 10 years or so. At least that's what it seems. It's either the Jaguars or the Panthers getting sent over there across the pond each and every year. And the Jaguars in that game, they've got a huge fan base in London. Give me Jacksonville by 4 points or more.
I am going to go with a shocker here on the road, so-called road. I'm going to take the Atlanta Falcons. They're going to pick up a victory here against the Jags. And the Jags, they've been a good team this year. However, they haven't won as many games as I would expect them to up to this point in the year. So I will take the Falcons against the spread. I'm going to say the Falcons win this game as well. Pittsburgh Steelers, they travel to Houston to take on the Texans and C.J. Stroud. The visiting Steelers, 3-point favorites on the road.
Yeah, this is the game where you're going to really figure out what C.J. Stroud is made of. Through the first 3 weeks, he's been the best rookie quarterback by far. He looks great out there. He's going up against the steel curtain defense, and I mean that defense in Pittsburgh right now is absolutely insane. With T.J. Watt, everybody else rushing the passer. Cameron Hayward didn't even play last week, and they did what they did. So whenever he goes back healthy, I mean, it's going to be hell for C.J. Stroud. The Texans don't have a good offensive line to begin with, so I'm going to go with the Steelers in this game by more than 3 points. Obviously, the Steelers offense just holds them back almost as much as the New York Jets offense holds themselves back. But I'm going to go with the Steelers in this game by more than 3 points. Give me the Steelers by a touchdown.
I'm going with the Steelers on the road as well, simply because of Watt and the rest of the defense. And I think Kenny Pickett will finally piece it together. We saw him make some progress last week. I think that he'll finally have a really good game against the Texans, a team that not so hot. Yes, C.J. Stroud's played pretty well. I'm going to take the Steelers on the road. The Los Angeles Rams go at it. Speaking of Jonathan Taylor against his Colts in Indianapolis, pick 'em. The over-under set at 46.5 points in this one, though.
Yeah, I'm going to take the Rams in this game. I think LA's looked good this year, and we're not sure if Anthony Richardson's going to start in this game. Minshew obviously is a pretty good quarterback, a very serviceable backup quarterback, maybe even a starting quarterback on some of the bottom 5 teams in the NFL. I think this guy should get a potential shot next year, and hopefully this will help his case heading into next season with how he's done so far, taking over for Indianapolis. But in this game, I'm not going to pick the Colts.
All right, I'm going to go with the Rams on the road. I think the Rams get it done. They have a better team by far. They're more established with their coaching staff, too, and the offense as well. Less new pieces there with the Rams. The Minnesota Vikings travel to Charlotte to take on the Panthers. The Panthers, 3.5-point home dogs in this game.
Yeah, the Vikings need a win. Carolina, not looking great. Obviously, Andy Dalton started last week versus the Seahawks. But not sure if Bryce Young's going to play in this game. I don't think it would matter. Regardless, I'm not going to take the Carolina Panthers in this game. Give me the Vikings for their first win of the season.
They need a first win. They need it now, or else I think Kirk Cousins is on the trade block, and maybe to a team like the New York Jets. So I will go with the Vikings on the road against the Panthers. The Philadelphia Eagles, they host the Washington Commanders. The Eagles, 8-point favorites. Yeah, they're at home. It's in the NFL. It's 8 points. That's a lot of points.
Yeah, I mean, but Sam Howell's been sacked the most times that an NFL quarterback has been sacked through the first 3 weeks. 19 times through 3 weeks for this guy. 9 times last week against the Buffalo Bills. He's going up against another ferocious, maybe even a more ferocious pass rush in the Philadelphia Eagles. Give me the Eagles in this game by more than 8 points. I'm going to go with Vegas to spread here and go even more.
I'm going to go with the Eagles at home. I don't know if they win by 8, though. I'll go with the Eagles winning the game. They don't cover that spread. All right, the Miami Dolphins play the Buffalo Bills in New York. The Bills, 2.5-point favorites over the undefeated Dolphins. Or undefeated Dolphins.
Yeah, I mean, the Bills have looked good. The Dolphins have looked insane. 70 points last week. I think they're going to come down from that a little bit this week and suffer their first loss of the season. It's Buffalo at home. Buffalo has a huge home field advantage. Give me Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills over Tua's Dolphins.
They need a win. Buffalo needs a win. They haven't been what I expected. Yeah, they're 2-1. They are in the AFC East. They're second place just behind the Dolphins. I think they tie it up with the wins and losses, and they beat the Dolphins here this week. And New York, Cincinnati travels to Nashville to take on the Titans, the visiting Bengals, 2-point favorites on the road.
Give me the Bengals. The Titans show nothing. Ryan Tannehill is the starting quarterback still, but you know why he's a starting quarterback? Because they've made draft blunders year after year, 2 years in a row. You drafted Levis this year. You drafted the other guy last year. Forgetting his name, he's not a great quarterback, but I mean, just a couple of draft blunders, and now you've got Tannehill at quarterback in 2023. Not ever going to pick the Titans.
I'm going to go with the Bengals on the road as well in this game. The Cleveland Browns, they'll host their rival, the Baltimore Ravens. The Browns, 3-point favorites at home.
Browns defense is insane this year, literally insane. One touchdown given up all year defensively, passing. So I mean, give me the Browns in this game. They play a tough game. Deshaun Watson had his best game with Cleveland last week, and that was pretty shocking. Mari Cooper had a huge game. Should have had 2 touchdowns. They took one away somehow. Didn't know how that wasn't a touchdown. But do not give me the Baltimore Ravens. I'll take the Browns in this one.
I'm going to go opposite. I'm going to go with the Ravens on the road. I think they finally have success throwing on that Browns defense. The Denver Broncos play in Chicago to take on the Bears, the visiting Broncos, 3.5-point favorites. The Broncos coming off an ass whooping.
Yeah, give me the Broncos. They're going to have to take it out on Justin Fields and the Bears.
Yeah, it's a great opportunity. The Bears are down. Kick 'em while he's down. Unfortunately, I'm taking the Broncos to the Chargers, host the Raiders. Raiders without star wide receiver Mike Williams. They still are 5.5-point home favorites.
Yeah, this will be an odd game. I'm going to go with the Raiders in this.
Chargers home, 5.5-point favorites.
I'm going to go with the Raiders in this game solely because the Chargers defense doesn't impress me. Neither does the Raiders defense. But after last week, Jimmy G with his concussion protocol check after the game because he played so bad, I think he's going to bounce back. And I'm going to go with the Raiders in this one.
I am going to take the Chargers at home. Justin Herbert has a big game. That tight end they have has a good game too. I'm going to go with the Chargers and the points. The Patriots take on the Cowboys there in Texas. The Cowboys 7-point favorites at home.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Cowboys, not by 7, Cowboys by 3 in this one. Patriots look pretty good, but not good enough to beat Dallas.
I'm going to go with Dallas, and I think they're going to smack them up. They need to. They need to prove it that they're a decent team, even with the loss of Trayvon Diggs. Arizona Cardinals take on the 49ers. Biggest spread of the week. 49ers, 14-point home favorites.
Look, the Cowboys were 14-point home favorites last week versus the Cardinals as well, and you saw the Cardinals beat them by 12 points or more. So, obviously, I'm going to take the 49ers in this game, but 14 points is too much of a spread. I think that the Cardinals are buzzing around because they have nothing to lose.
I'm dittoing with that, and it looks like Josh Dobbs is motivated too. They forgot to get his jersey in the team store. The New York Jets will host the Kansas City Chiefs. It's Sunday Night Football. The Jets, 9.5-point home dogs for the Jets.
Yeah, week 1, this game looked like it was going to be an absolute barn burner. Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes. Now you've got Patrick Mahomes versus Zach Wilson, and the team's already given up on this guy. Coaches should give up on him this week if he sucks. Give me the Chiefs by 100.
Saints take on the Buccaneers there in New Orleans. The Saints, 3-point home favorites over the Buccaneers.
Yeah, this is going to be the battle for the NFC South, and I'm going to take the Buccaneers in this game. Jameis Winston, the starting quarterback. The Buccaneers have done good against Winston so far over the last 2 years that they played him. Obviously, 1 year he tore his ACL. They ended up winning that game with their backup quarterback, Taysom Hill. The next year, though, they really shut down Winston. Winston got hurt again, ended his season again. I'm not hoping for a season-ending injury for Jameis Winston because I like him as a quarterback, but give me the Buccaneers. I think 2 interceptions on Sunday by the Bucs defense.
I think the Buccaneers prevail as well. I think Jameis tries to do just too much there late in the game like we saw last year. I'm going to take the Bucs on the road. Final game, Seahawks at the Giants. It's a pick 'em. Monday night.
Ooh, man, I'm going to go Seattle. The Giants have not shown very much this year. Give me Seattle Seahawks.
Give me the Giants at home. And without further ado, that is another edition of TCM Pod. We appreciate you for following, subscribing, commenting, the whole 9 yards. Peace.